Musa unlocked the padlock and pushed open the wooden door of his new workshop. Just as he stepped inside, he froze. Right in the middle of the sawdust floor lay a coffin. The wood was dark, as though it had been buried before. The lid was cracked open just enough to reveal a pale hand resting stiffly on the edge. Musa's chest squeezed. His first thought was to run, but before his feet could move, the coffin vanished. The floor was bare again. His bench and tools sat exactly where he had left them the previous evening. He stood frozen, gripping the door frame, sweat covering his face. After a long moment, he whispered, "It is my eyes. I am only tired." But his heart told him otherwise. The first time Musa saw the land, it looked like a fresh start. For years, Musa had dreamed of owning his own furniture workshop. He had spent 4 years serving as an apprentice to his father's friend in Hotoro. Day after day, from dawn till midnight, he cut planks, carried wardrobes, and sanded wood until his fingers bled. He believed that one day his master would settle him properly, with tools, a machine, and money to start life. But on the last day, as an apprentice, his master pressed a thin envelope into his hand. "Take this and manage." When Musa looked into the envelope, he saw only 25,000 naira. He was not given a saw or even a hammer. He was expecting a huge sum of money and tools, just like he had settled the other apprentices. He wept inwardly. Inside he was crushed, but he held on to his pride and walked away silently. He had nowhere to go. He couldn't go back home, not after 4 years. For weeks, he slept in unfinished buildings, bathed with sachet water, and ate whenever he could. One fortunate evening, Musa met his cousin, Bello. Bello sold second-hand phones in the motor park. He was 3 years older, stronger, and had always been protective of Musa. When he found out what Musa had gone through, how he was poorly settled and how he had been surviving, he saw that he had nowhere to sleep. So, Bello allowed him into his one-room apartment, and when Musa went hungry, Bello shared his food. "You must not give up," Bello would say. "One day you will have a shop of your own. Don't let what they did to you kill your spirit." Bello's words and the little help he gave kept Musa going through the hardest nights, and his wish remained alive. "If I can just find a land, I will build my furniture shop where people will come and buy chairs and tables made by my hands." And this thought kept him going. For months, he rented tools from carpenters. He would go to the market and build stools for market women with a smile on his face. He worked for other carpenters and got paid. Little by little, he gathered money. At first, he went to Kofa market to get a space, but the rent was too much. He needed somewhere cheap. One afternoon, a land agent approached him at the timber market. "You are Musa, right? I hear you are looking for a space." "Yes," Musa answered. "I have an empty land that is cheap. You can come and inspect it." The offer looked very enticing, so Musa followed him to a land near Kofa roundabout. It was a busy road, the traffic was good. There was a tailor beside him and a phone repairer. The place seemed perfect for business. But the land itself was oddly empty. The fence was broken. A rusting gate leaned in weeds. The grass grew wild. The price was 10,000 naira for a year. Musa saw only opportunity. He didn't ask questions about the land. He imagined a zinc roof workshop, stacks of timber, and a bold signboard that read, Musa Furniture, Interiors. That same evening, he met the landlord, a tall, soft-spoken man with grey at his temples. Musa paid for 6 months. They signed an agreement on lined paper. He felt hopeful, believing his future was taking shape, or so he thought. On his first day, while he was clearing the land, his shovel struck something hard. He bent and brushed sand away. Beneath was a marble slab. Words were faint but still visible. Loved mother, rest in peace. Musa's blood chilled. It was a tombstone. Quickly, he covered it again with sand. Debris, he muttered, forcing himself to believe it, though his mind kept wondering what a tombstone was doing there. But he kept working. He built the shop with woods, and by evening he had raised a rough wooden frame. Passers-by stopped to watch, but none said anything. For some days, everything seemed normal, but business was slow. Though, it didn't discourage Musa. Instead, he became more and more resilient. He made stools, chairs, and other household furniture. Soon, people started noticing him. They placed orders for stools. Market women came with their weak chairs for repairs. But none spoke about the land or what used to happen here. But business was moving for Musa. But soon he started noticing strange things. The street got coldly quiet from 3 p.m. and the tailor next door always closes by 4 p.m. Musa asked him one day, "Why do you close so early?" The man avoided his eyes, but he replied, "This land is not good at night." That night, Musa dreamed of a man sitting in a white coffin inside his shop, and in that dream, a calm voice whispered to him, "Measure me well." He jolted up, shivering and sweating, unsure of what he just saw. By morning, Musa got to his shop, ready for business. He pushed open the door. At first, everything looked normal. His bench was there, his tools were in place. But then, his eyes saw something that made him froze. In the middle of the floor stood a dark coffin. The lid cracked open. A pale hand resting on the edge. He blinked, and in an instant it disappeared. But then it was there again, closer than before. Musa staggered back. His first thought was to run, but before his feet could move, the coffin vanished. The floor was bare again. His bench and tools sat exactly where he had left them the previous evening. He stood frozen, gripping the doorframe, sweat covering his face. After a long moment, he whispered, "It is my eyes. I am only tired." But his heart told him otherwise. Musa continued with his day, though he kept replaying the scene in his head over and over. Customers came, paid, and left with promises to return. By noon, Musa almost convinced himself the coffin was only a bad dream, that it didn't exist. But by 3 p.m., the other shopkeepers closed. The phone repairman pulled down his shutter. The tailor tied his machine with cloth and left without a word. But Musa stayed, and at 7:15 p.m., he lit a rechargeable lamp. He had gotten so many orders that he needed to deliver, so he worked. The light was steady and white. Not long after came footsteps. One steady movement. A tall man stood in the doorway. He was slim and he wore a black cap. His shirt was pressed, but the style was from another time, like the 90s. "Good evening," the man said softly. "I need a chair. Strong, no nails, just to use plywoods and screw." Musa nodded, though he was nervous. He wasn't expecting a customer at this time of the night. The man stepped inside. His shoes left no mark in the sawdust. He placed 3 notes on the bench, 1,000 naira each. But as Musa touched them, the notes were cold. "I will return at 8 p.m., the man said, and walked away. Not toward the road, but into the weeds, then gone. Musa forced himself to build the chair, but by 8:10, the man had not returned. After a while, he reached for the money. To his surprise, it had changed. The notes were now looking old, the ink had faded, and the date on it was 1999. Musa's chest tightened. He dropped them. They floated slowly like dry leaves. In fear, he grabbed his bag and ran home to Bello. He told him everything that happened. Bello listened carefully. He did not laugh. He knew what the land was, but hoped nothing would happen. But, seeing the fear in his cousin's eyes, he told Musa what that land really was. That land was once a cemetery, he said. The government demolished it 2 years ago, but not all the bodies were taken. Everyone knows. That is why the rent was cheap. Musa went into instant shock. He couldn't move his mouth. He felt dizzy. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked with an urgent expression. "You never asked," Bello said softly. "And I hoped maybe nothing would happen. I didn't want to spoil your joy, but now it has. Musa, leave before it gets worse." But Musa whispered, broken, "I paid for 6 months. How can I leave there just yet? It's better to lose money than your life," Bello said firmly. That night, Musa slept on Bello's floor. 3 times he woke from the same dream. A man, dressed in white, was standing in a coffin at the middle of his shop. He keeps shouting at Musa to build him a coffin. He sat up in fear the whole night, afraid to sleep. The next morning, Musa returned the workshop. When he entered, it looked normal. But on the floor, drawn neatly in chalk, was a rectangle. And from beneath the boards came 3 slow knocks. Toke, toke, toke. "Musa, pack and leave now," Bello's words last night echoed in his head. But Musa's pride burned. The night before, he had sworn to pack, but as he looked at his signboard, he shook his head. "I can't give up so soon." That evening, just before closing, a woman appeared. She wore a white wrapper, and her eyes were pale. "Carpenter," she said softly, "make a coffin. Make it small for my child." Musa's blood turned cold. "Madam, I don't—" "Make it strong," she interrupted, and placed 2 500 naira notes on the bench. Crisp, but dated 1995. She turned and walked out. Her feet made no sound. Musa ran after her. When he got to the road, it was empty. The next morning, Musa opened his cash box, but to his surprise, the money was gone. In its place lay a torn scrap of paper. On it, faintly written, "We will come again." His stomach dropped. He ran to the landlord's house. "Sir, what is this land really?" The landlord smiled gently. "Why worry? You are making money. Stay. This land rewards those who don't run." "But why does everyone else close before dark?" Musa asked. The landlord's smile thinned, then returned. "Not everyone can handle the night, but you will get used to it." That evening, Musa packed early. He tied his tools into the rice sack. He was ready to leave, but just as he reached the door, he heard a sound. Tock, tock, tock. 3 knocks came from the bench. He froze. The knocks came again. It was from the floor this time. The rechargeable lamp flickered, and sawdust lifted in a faint swirl. Musa's breath shook. He bolted out and locked the door with trembling hands. Musa could not sleep that night. He lay on Bello's floor, his eyes open until morning, hearing in his head the sound of chalk scratching and the calm voices whispering, "Your rent is due." Before dawn, he sat up. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. "Bello," he whispered, "I am leaving that land today. I will pack everything and never go back." Bello looked at him and nodded firmly. "Good. I will go with you. We must finish it today before the sun goes down." At 9 a.m., they arrived at the workshop. The sun was bright. Children ran on the roadside, chasing an old tire. Traders shouted their prices. The noise of life was everywhere, which was quite strange. But Musa's hands shook as he fitted the key into the padlock. He was uncertain of what to see inside, and he was very scared. Soon, he opens the door. The workshop was quiet, too quiet, but empty of coffins, empty of chalk. Only his tools and the chair he had built stood inside. Bello exhaled. "You see, it is fine. Let us pack." Musa nodded. He gathered his signboard, folded it carefully, and tied his tools into the rice sack. He worked quickly, determined not to linger. But just as he bent to lift the sack, his eyes froze. On the floor, in the sawdust, faint words had been written as though by a child's finger. "Don't leave." Musa's heart stuttered. "Bello," he pointed. Bello followed his eyes. His face tightened. He stepped on the words and kicked the sawdust until they vanished. "Don't look at it. Carry your bag. We are going now." By noon, Musa and Bello had carried everything to the timber market. Musa rented a tiny corner near a plank cellar. It was hot, crowded, and noisy but alive. The timber seller, a friendly man with a round face, clapped him on the back. "Carpenter, welcome. Here you will find customers every day. Forget that other place." Musa forced a smile. For the first time in weeks, he felt a little safe. He arranged his bench. He laid his tools neatly. He wiped his face with a handkerchief. "I am free now," he told himself. "The land is behind me." But freedom did not last long. When Musa bent to untie the rice sack, 3 tiny coffins fell out from the sack. Musa's hands trembled. He picked them up quickly, stuffing it back inside the bag. The timber seller laughed. "You build coffins too?" Musa forced a weak laugh. "Yes, only on demand." But Bello's eyes never left him. He saw the fear on Musa's face. That afternoon, Musa worked on a shelf order. He sanded, cut, and nailed while sweat poured down his back. A group of traders gathered nearby. They whispered among themselves, "Is that not the carpenter who rented the cursed land?" One woman asked. "Yes," another muttered. "I heard he was seeing things." "That is why the tailor moved," an old man added. "Better he left before it caught him." Musa's ears burned. He kept his head down, but their whispers stabbed like knives. These people had known the history of that land, but nobody told him. As the sun lowered, a familiar shadow appeared at the edge of his stall. Immediately, Musa froze. It was the tall man in the dark cap, the same one who had once ordered a chair and vanished into weed. The same man who never came to collect his chair. Musa's face became pale. His lips were still too. He looked at the man's eye, but they were unreadable. "Carpenter," he said calmly, "why did you leave?" Bello, who was seated the whole time, jumped to his feet. "Who are you? Leave us alone!" But the man ignored him. He placed 3 notes on the bench. "Make another chair. Deliver it to the same place." Musa stared at the notes. They looked clean, fresh, but he remembered the icy cold they were and how it turned to dry leaves the last time. Before he could answer, the man turned and walked away, straight into the crowd. But no one moved aside for him and no one even noticed him. And in a blink, he was gone. The timber seller approached, frowning. "Carpenter? Who were you talking to?" Musa's lips trembled. "Did you not see him? A tall man? He stood right here." The timber seller shook his head. Nobody was here. Other traders close to them nodded in agreement. It was just Bello and him. Bello placed a firm hand on Musa's shoulder. "Come and sit down." Musa buried his face in his palms. To everyone else, he looked like a man slowly losing his mind. That night, Bello locked the market store himself. He spoke in a low, hard voice. "Now you see, it is not only the land. They are following you now. If you had listened earlier," Musa's whisper broke. "But why me?" "Because you built on their ground," Bello said. "You opened the door." "But I wasn't the only one there," he replied. "You don't know what the other occupants are facing. Don't be too quick to judge." The next day, Musa returned, determined to face whatever waited. He opened his rice sack to arrange his tools. At the bottom, beneath the hammer and saw, 3 dead fingers. Beside it were small boxes. They were coffins, and carved into each one was a single name, Musa. His hands shook violently. From behind him, in the crowded market, a calm voice whispered close to his ear, "Your rent follows you." Musa spun around, but there was no one there. The traders nearby looked up at his sudden movement. To them, Musa was only a trembling carpenter staring into empty space. But Musa realized that Bello was right. They had followed him. Musa sat in the market corner, trembling. The 3 small wooden boxes with his name carved on them still lay at the bottom of his rice sack. He called the only person who would believe him, Bello. When Bello saw the fingers and coffins, Bello's face had darkened. This is no longer about land. They are feeding off your fear. What do I do? Musa whispered, his voice breaking. Bello was silent for a long time, then said, "We must see someone. A man who knows how to deal with these kind of situations." That afternoon, Bello took Musa to an Alfa who lived near the mosque at the edge of Kofa. The man was old, his beard white, his eyes sharp but calm. Musa placed the miniature coffins and the fingers wrapped in a white cloth on the mat before him. His hands shook as he spoke. They said, "My rent is due." The Alfa stared at the boxes and fingers for a long time. Then he looked straight at Musa. "My son, you should never have touched that land," he said quietly. "It belonged to the dead before it was sold to the living. When you built there, you made a covenant without knowing. You opened a spiritual portal that allows them to feed on you." Musa's chest tightened. His eyes burned with shame. "I only wanted to achieve my dream." The Alfa's voice was firm but gentle. "Ignorance is not an excuse. You don't live your life blindly. You should have asked questions before taking that land. The dead do not share their ground. They do not want your tables or your chairs. They want your hands. And if you keep what ties you to them, they will claim you fully. Have taken anything from them or spent their money?" "No, I haven't," Musa replied. "Good," he said. "Now discard everything," the Alfa said. "Every tool, every plank, every signboard, every box they left you. Anything that touched that land, leave it behind and never return. Start again with clean hands, or you will not last." That evening, Musa and Bello returned to the market corner. The sack lay heavy at Musa's feet. He untied it slowly. Inside were his saw, his hammer, his plane, his tape measure, all the tools he had worked with, all he had saved for. Musa's throat tightened. His dream lay in that bag. Bello's voice was steady beside him. "Better to lose tools than lose your mind. Better to lose wood than lose your life." Musa's eyes brimmed. His fingers brushed the handle of his saw one last time. Then he stood. They carried the sack back to the land. With trembling hands, Musa emptied it all onto the earth: tools, planks, signboard, coffins. The Alfa, who had followed them quietly, raised his hands in prayer. "In the name of God, we break the tie. The ground returns to its owners. The living return to their lives." When the last word was spoken, a strange stillness fell. Even the evening breeze grew soft. For 3 days, Musa did not step near the market. He stayed with Bello, weak, barely able to eat. But the voices stopped. The dreams ended. He didn't see coffins anymore. On the 4th day, he rose. His body was tired, but his mind was clear. Bello placed a hand on his shoulder. "Now you can start all over. Slowly, start with small jobs. Borrow tools if you must. At least you are alive." Musa nodded and whispered, Better poor and alive than rich in a coffin. Weeks later, Musa returned to his shade in the open market. He had nothing more than a table and borrowed tools. He worked only by daylight. His hands were slower, but his spirit was lighter. Sometimes people whispered about him. That is the carpenter who rented the old cemetery land. Musa heard them, but he did not answer. He had learned his lesson the hardest way. Not every land is for building. Some belong to the dead. And when you see something too cheap, don't be ignorant. Ask questions. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, do not hesitate to subscribe, like, and comment. This is Storytime by Noah. We are looking forward to creating more interesting stories with you. Bye for now.